Welcome to Trusting in the Lord, a channel dedicated to sharing inspiring teachings of Jesus to help you live with peace, love, and strength every day. Join us as we explore sacred messages from the Bible. Today, we will explore a topic that is both deeply important and incredibly challenging: forgiveness. Forgiveness is not just a one-time act, but a way of life. Jesus taught that we must forgive not just once, but 70 times 7, meaning without limit. But how do we truly forgive? How can our hearts be free when the pain still lingers? In this journey, we will explore meaningful perspectives on forgiveness through the words, example, and love of Jesus. I hope you find something here that touches your heart and brings you closer to peace. Forgiveness, the power of inner healing. Forgiveness is not forgetting what happened, nor is it accepting injustice. Forgiveness is choosing to release anger and reclaim inner peace. When you hold on to bitterness, you're binding yourself to past pain. But when you forgive, you set yourself free. God knows your pain, and He is the source of strength to help you overcome. Forgiveness is the first step toward healing from within. When you choose to forgive, you open the door to freedom, peace, and love, and you will realize you are living in the light of Christ. Christ's example, forgiveness on the cross. On the cross, Jesus was insulted, wounded, and betrayed. Yet in the midst of agony, He prayed, "Father, forgive them." He forgave those who were crucifying Him. That was not weakness. It was the unimaginable power of divine love. Christ's example shows us, forgiveness is not about whether the other person deserves it, but about a heart transformed by love. We cannot forgive in our own strength, but with God's help, we can do the impossible. And that's when miracles begin. When the pain is still there, can I forgive? One of the hardest questions is, how can I forgive when the wound is still there? Betrayal, injustice, harsh words, they leave lasting scars. But it's often when we feel forgiveness is impossible that Jesus invites us to take a step of faith. Forgiveness doesn't mean denying the pain. It means placing that pain in God's hands and trusting Him to heal it. Each time you choose to forgive, your heart becomes a little lighter, and you're moving one step closer to true freedom. Forgiving yourself, the hardest step. Sometimes, the person you need to forgive the most is yourself. You may carry guilt, shame, and regret. You may replay your mistakes. But here's the truth. God has already forgiven you, and He no longer remembers your sin. What you need is to see yourself through God's eyes, as someone loved, forgiven, and valuable. Forgiving yourself means accepting God's grace and believing that your identity is not defined by the past, but by His love today. A true story. Forgiveness that transformed a life. A woman lost her son to murder. She had every reason to hate. But after many years, she chose to forgive the man who killed her son. She went to visit him in prison, prayed for him, and even began treating him like her own child. Amazingly, that prisoner found faith and turned his life around. And the mother, she was healed from her deepest pain. This story shows us, forgiveness does not change the past, but it can change the future. Living each day with a forgiving spirit. Forgiveness is not a one-time act, but a daily choice. Every day brings moments of frustration and offense. But if you choose to forgive daily, your heart becomes lighter and your spirit freer. Some days, it's easy. Other days, you may have to pray through tears. But God is always with you, strengthening you. You can pray, Lord, help me forgive today. And each day, you become a little softer, a little stronger, and a little more like Christ. The journey of forgiveness is not easy, but it is worth it. You don't need to be perfect to begin. You only need a willing heart. If today you are carrying pain, anger, or something you cannot let go of, give it to God. He understands. He loves you, and He will walk with you step by step. Forgiveness is not the end of justice, but the beginning of freedom, peace, and love. Spreading forgiveness, a witness of love. When the journey of forgiveness comes to an end, a new journey begins, the journey of spreading forgiveness to others. The young man no longer keeps his healing to himself. He shares his story with a friend who is also hurting. He doesn't preach or judge, he simply sits beside him, listens, and says, "I've been where you are, but God touched my heart." Forgiveness is no longer just a lesson. It becomes a living testimony of God's love. He no longer looks at people with judgment, but with understanding and compassion. When you have been forgiven, you cannot stay silent, because that same mercy will compel you to do the same for others. That is when forgiveness doesn't just change one person, but begins to change the entire world around you. Beginning a new day with a new heart. Forgiveness is not the end, it is the beginning of a new life. When your heart is freed from resentment, you begin to see life with more lightness and peace. God doesn't just call you to forgive others, He also calls you to forgive yourself. Every morning is a chance to start again, to love deeper, and to walk forward without the burdens of yesterday. The young man in our story is no longer the same. His eyes are softer, his steps more certain, and his soul open to receive every good thing God has prepared. And you? Who might you forgive today? Someone else? Or maybe yourself? Begin now. Because forgiveness doesn't just change a moment. It has the power to change an entire life. Thank you for joining me in this journey. See you again tomorrow.